Hi, and welcome to How to Write a UROP Proposal. This is for the summer 2022 application cycle, and so all the dates will reflect that. My name is Shiver. I am an academic program manager in the Office of Undergraduate Research, and that is why I'm kind of leading you through this how-to session today. We want to go over what UROP is just really quickly in case you've happened upon this slideshow and need either a refresher or an introduction to what the program is like, what you would be applying to. So UROP is the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program in the Office of Undergraduate Research, where we hire students as employees of our office to pay you to do work with your faculty mentor. It's really cool because it supports students doing research or creative work in any discipline on campus. And so like whatever you're interested in, whatever your major is, whatever kind of research you're interested in doing, it's all fair game. It pays you a $1,200 stipend for 120 hours of work in your first semester. And there is an option to renew for a second semester. The pay is exactly the same in the second semester. You just apply for each semester that you would like the funding independently. That means on average, you're working approximately 10 hours a week. For the summer session, because that semester is shorter, it's something more like 12 hours a week if you're just doing it averaged out over the whole summer semester. And in fall and spring, it's something more like 8.9, I think. And so that's why we say approximately 10 hours a week. But it is also up to you and your mentor and the project demands how you distribute that time over your semester. So who's eligible to participate in this program? It's designed to not be exclusive. And so we'll go through this nitty gritty, but hopefully you'll just be like, check, check, check. Yep, that means me. Okay, so matriculated undergraduate students at the U, not on any kind of probation. If matriculated is a new word for you, it just means that you would like to graduate with some kind of undergraduate degree at some point. You might have to be enrolled as an undergraduate student during the award semester, except for summer. And so if you're looking forward to applying to summer, but you're not interested in taking classes, that's fine. The enrollment requirement would then be that you are enrolled part-time or full-time in the spring and fall surrounding that award semester. The goal here is just to, make sure that the project that you're doing is contributing to your program of study, contributing to your graduation plan, and that our money is going to current enrolled undergrads. You have to be eligible for university employment to receive the UROP stipend. There is this caveat though, all University of Utah students who are successfully able to complete an I-9, it's a hiring document, are eligible for employment. If you, for whatever various reasons, are not eligible for employment, we do have some other options for you. It just wouldn't come in the same form of that stipend. So if you're not eligible for employment for whatever reason, but you're interested in UROP and the funding, please get in contact with us. Should have updated this slide. Dr. Fukushima is our new director, and she would be happy to talk to you about what those options are. Applicants who are University of Utah Dreamers, with or without DACA, are eligible to participate in the program. You do need to have an established relationship with your mentor at the time of application. So if you're watching this video and you're like, oh, I don't have a mentor, I'm not currently involved in that research, that's okay. We fund every semester. And so reach out to us. We have advisors in the office who are very happy to help you kind of figure out who you might reach out to and who you might work with. And then once you have that mentor and you understand what you would be doing in the semester work, that's what you would write your application based on. Mentors do have to be current University of Utah faculty members or graduate students or postdocs who have completed the Undergraduate Research Mentor Development Program, either when it was hosted in our office or through the VPR's office and the Research Education Program now. And again, you can be awarded a maximum of 2 semesters, 1 new semester and 1 renewal semester. The student requirements, and you would see these, you would see them again later, because once you're awarded, we have a mandatory orientation where we go over this. But you have to attend that orientation, at least 2 of the education series events each semester you're awarded. You conduct the work as you propose it. That's what you're awarded that funding based on, and so do that work. read and respond to us, complete a final report by the last day of the semester. It is not a huge, 30-page paper with fully finished analyzed data. It's not that at all. It's an online form that takes like 10 minutes to fill out max. We also require that you present your work at one of our undergraduate research symposia, and we have one every semester, so you have lots of options for that, and that's just before you graduate. And then, that you have the certifications that you need for whatever kind of work you're doing. And then that you acknowledge support from us in the dissemination of your research in presentations or publications, and we have materials for that too. So all of that was just to kind of let you know what you'd be getting yourself into, just so you're aware of the program requirements. Hopefully you're not looking at the slide going, oh, this is too much, I can't do it. And instead you're going, oh yeah, that's totally manageable. The proposal itself, really the reason that you're watching this video, is a 4 to 6 page project proposal submitted through an online application form. So the 4 to 6 pages is when you are working in whatever word processing system you're using. Let's say it's just Microsoft Word. It's 4 to 6 pages double spaced. So it's really 2 to 3 pages if you're doing single spaced content. It's pretty short, so it needs to be kind of concise and to the point. And we'll talk about what goes into each of the sections in it in just a moment. It also comes with a mentor recommendation. And so your mentor that you've listed in your application and on the application form will have their own form to fill out with a couple of questions about, why you're prepared for success, why the project deserves funding, how it contributes to the university's equity, all of these things. But it's just a couple of questions. It won't take them very long to fill out. And then we send completed proposals out to independent reviewers, independent from our office. So they are faculty in the relevant school or college of the mentor of record of your project. They're not necessarily in the same department, but they review based on our review criteria and field standards that they're aware of, because they are relevantly situated in terms of the kind of work that you're doing. And then it's increasingly competitive. Our goal really is to fund as many students as we possibly can, but it is always increasingly competitive. And so you do want to focus on writing a strong proposal. It's necessary for your funding. It is very possible to do this though. And then there is, again, that option to renew for a second semester. The applications are identical, except we would like an updated proposal in terms of the work that you'd be doing. So in the timeline section, when we talk about that, you would definitely need to change that over to whatever second semester timeline you're thinking about. And then there are, I think, 3 additional questions asking about how the first semester went, how your relationship with your mentor went, those kinds of things. The deadlines are the same for your second semester application, and it does require that full proposal that's updated with new information as relevant. Okay, very important, UROP deadlines. The application to be funded in summer 2022 is March 11th, 2022. It's obnoxiously right around spring break. And so if you are interested in that, put it on your calendar, send yourself 12 reminders, whatever it takes for you to kind of keep this in the back of your mind and be ready to submit on time. Okay, so then the proposal evaluation criteria. Before we get to how to write the content in each section, these are the things that get their own specific scores by those faculty reviewers. And so it's kind of nice to kind of keep in the back of your mind, like, this is the overarching goal. So we've got 5 things that get their own scores. Project quality, which at first sounds like it means is your science good, but that's not really what it's trying to get at. Instead, it's the overall quality of the proposed work. So is it written effectively? Does it have all of the content and detail that the reviewers need to have to understand the plan? And just basically, it's kind of the overall score for everything going on in that proposal. Plan and timeline directly lines up with that section in the proposal. It's about your specific activities. You've got to have concrete, realistic timelines for the completion of the work. And it's really important that you have this concrete plan so that you can manage your time well and know what you're doing throughout the semester. So it gets its own score. Suitability of the mentoring relationship. It's the relationship of the work that you're doing in this project, so the proposed work, to your faculty members' expertise, experience, the kind of work that they're doing now, as well as the familiarity of the mentor with you, your goals, your skills, how this is going to facilitate what you want to get out of life, and kind of the impact of the proposed mentoring activities. So we'll get to this when we talk about the mentor section, but you would benefit from adding some concrete details to how you are being mentored. Impact on students' education. So this is the potential of this experience to enhance what you're doing. Your degree, your long-term educational, long-term professional goals. What are the goals? What does it take to get them? And how does this experience facilitate them? And then we have contribution to equity. So how does the student project or student's role as a researcher contribute to the university's mission for equity? The caveat to this last section is that it's a question on the mentor reference form. It's not something that you're responsible for writing or addressing directly in your proposal. There's no section for it. Hopefully, if you haven't already been having conversations with your mentor about their approach to equity in, their lab structure, their mentoring approach, the kind of research they do, all of the different ways that equity applies to research. This is a great time to have that conversation with them so that you know about their approach, their thinking about equity, and then also you might know something about how they would answer this question. So again, the contribution to equity is in the mentor reference form only. Okay, so then the proposal, what you're actually writing. The application form is going to ask you for a title, applicant name, your mentor name and department, right? So all of these kind of details, so we know who's applying, we can track you down to pay you later, that kind of stuff. And then the proposal can include only the following sections. So you've got your statement of problem, topic of research or creative work, it's your first section. And then the relevant background or literature review section. Your timeline, so the specific activities and that timetable allotted for each activity. And then the relationship with your mentor and the relationship between the work and your goals. So you've got 5 sections that you're going to actually focus on providing content for. Please do write your proposal in a word processing system. And the reason for this is that our application form doesn't save. You cannot save a draft in it. And so if you are writing it directly in there, you're probably going to lose it. And that's going to be frustrating for you. Don't do that. So write it in a Word document, send it back and forth with your mentor before you copy and paste it from that document over into the actual application form. This is also helpful for you so that you have a copy of it, because once it goes into our application form, you don't have it anymore. So you click submit and it doesn't give you a PDF. And so you'll want to save a copy of on your own. You can provide all images, tables, graphs, etc. as appendices in a 1-page PDF file and upload it to the form. Don't plan to work them into the actual document content. It's going to be its own document. And try not to rely on these to make the point about what you're doing, what your methods are, or equations you're using, or what your prototype might look like. Instead, hopefully you and your mentor can kind of figure out how you can describe that in the text of the application so that the images might be nice to look at, but they're not what the reviewers really need in order to understand what you're doing. This is good practice just for the clarity of your scientific writing, and it's also in case the PDF doesn't load right, all kinds of tech things can happen. And so you have this 1-page PDF file for images and tables and graphs, but try not to rely on it as much as you possibly can. Another note about the way that the platform formats things, your footnotes and endnotes won't paste into this system well. So please, at all. So please use parenthetical and text reference forms. Examples, APA, MLA, there are others. You just want to provide whatever your field standard in-text reference style, something in the body of the sections that you're writing that they can then go look at the full references in the reference text box. The references in that references text box will be unformatted. So the, for instance, italicization in the APA, it won't retain that. That's okay. That's not your fault. You're not going to be held responsible for that. It's because of the platform. References on a UROP application do mean your citations, who you are referring to support the argument and the literature review that you are synthesizing in the application. It's not personal references. That can be confusing because if you're applying to a job, for instance, references would mean something different. Here, it's your citations. Upon submitting your form, you're going to get an email that you need to forward to your mentor. If you don't forward the email to them, they won't get it, and then they won't be able to provide your reference, and that would disqualify your application. So you're going to get a confirmation. You need to forward it to your mentor. That's how they get to that mentor's recommendation. They have a week after your application deadline to get their mentor reference format. So your deadline is March 11th. Theirs is March 18th. And of course, if you submit yours earlier, they have more time. Yes. Okay, so now we're going to go through some sample proposals. They're samples from different subject areas. Hopefully that's helpful to kind of help you think through whatever area you're in. The kind of flow and format of this kind of proposal will look pretty similar, even if the content is very, very different. We want to use them as a guide, not as a formula. So if you are looking at the sample proposals and those red squares down the side of the how to apply page, don't use them as a template and just copy and paste your information into how they've got it. Read it for, formatting and flow. There's lots of different ways that you could present this information. And then, of course, write your own. Another little note, the proposals aren't perfect. None of them are. Nothing ever is. But they're good examples of proposals that have been accepted in the semester that they were awarded. Right, and so that doesn't reflect the applicant pool in other semesters, which is another good reason to not use them as a template or a formula, but to just look at them as examples and be like, oh, okay, there's one way that I could say this. Okay, so now the thing that you're actually really here for, kind of a section by section description of what you're trying to do and some examples. So very first section, statement of problem, topic of research or creative work. This is something like the abstract for your project. So it's intended to be a very clear, clean, concise, short paragraph, basically, of an overview of the entire project. So the purpose is to clearly set out what you'll be addressing in your project and to make clear that it's both concrete, there's a plan, it's attached to literature, right, and it's significant or important. It's got impact. So things to notice about the sample proposals or the sample sections that we're about to look at together. They are clear, they are concise, there's very direct language and it's short, and there is an explicit statement about the impact or significance or application of the work that you're going to be doing in your UROP project. So this is rather long. Many of these sections are. So if you're watching this video, well, you are watching this video. Pause my talking, read this at your own pace, and then start playing again. Okay, so what we get here is a really short, it's just several sentences explanation of what's going on in the project area. So this very first sentence, existing literature has found some stuff. Great. The second sentence that's now highlighted in red makes this important pivot that helps you define the purpose of your own research. So existing literature has found this thing. There is, however, relatively little research on the thing that I'll be doing now. And then we're going to talk about something about like the methods, how we're going to go about doing this new thing that no one's done or we don't know enough about, something about our anticipated results. And then we're going to close with the second chunk of red lettering. The results may suggest ways in which parents and other caregivers can improve some stuff, right? And so we get a clear, we anticipate a kind of result, and these results are going to help us do something that's important to do. And so we've got a nice, clean addressing of kind of 5 typical rhetorical moves that you'll see in abstracts. So you want to give your reader enough background to understand what it is that you're talking about, the area of the work that you are doing, that pivot to the purpose of your project. So something important hasn't been done yet. We don't know something that needs to be known, and you're going to do that. Something about the way that you're going to do it. So a gesture at your methods. It's not going to be a full method section because it's like a sentence or two. Maybe something about your anticipated results, and then the implication of that, why this is important. Okay, here's another one. Again, pause me, read it at your own pace, and then pick me back up. You'll see the same kind of moves here. So this is a little bit longer, and we're talking about chiral molecules, so it's a different kind of situation altogether. But we get a nice background. You'll notice it's a little longer, there are more sentences, but we start with the background. And then again, in this first chunk of red lettering, we get that pivot. So while simple 2-dimensional models have recently shed some light on thermodynamics and chiral crystallization, this other thing hasn't happened, right? Predictions made with these 2-dimensional simulations are not necessarily applicable to 3-dimensional systems, which matters. And so now we're going to look at that. And then the last sentence, the second chunk of red lettering, it gives us that clear impact statement. So by analyzing the thermodynamic landscape and crystallization kinetics of these models, we aim to predict the likelihood of spontaneous separation based on molecular structure and interactions. So we get, again, the background, the purpose, something about some methods. We know enough about it to be like, oh, okay, I see, how you're going to move forward, even though we haven't gotten that full timeline. Something about anticipated results and the impact of those. Okay, so that was your first section. Second section, relevant background and lit review. This section, you could think of this section as a longer version of the same thing that we just talked about. It could be formulated or formatted. The flow could be exactly the same order. And the purpose is to make clear that you understand kind of where your project lies in the broader context of your field and the work you're doing. Right. So there's a whole history behind what it is that you're doing and why it needs to be done and how we've gotten here. And so you want to provide enough of that context and support everything that you say about that context with literature and citations from your field to exhibit that you're engaged enough in the project already. Like you know the background of it, you know how it falls, you know why the practices, techniques, procedures, whatever you're doing in your work are grounded in field standard practices, or they're better than those. So things to notice about the sample proposals, they do include citations throughout, and every piece of content, everything, every argumentative move that happens in these sections supports the claim that the project is significant. So if you're struggling with literature reviews, also we have a video on our Undergraduate Research Education Series page. It's just called Literature Reviews, and that can be really helpful. We also have one called Discipline-Specific Writing in Medicine, and what Dr. Shu does in that session is talk about the format of a lit review as though it's a funnel. So you start with your really broad level information, your background, you're introducing your reader to what's going on in your field, and then you're narrowing it down to specifically what you're doing and why, that matters, and you're doing it the right way, and it's all supported by literature. So this is extremely long, and it's one of the shorter ones. So again, please pause me and then pick me back up after you have read this at your own pace. Okay, so the lit reviews, there are many of them. They are very good. They do tend to be the longest section in the proposal. And so I would suggest going and reading, the lit review sections of papers in your field and maybe some of those UROP proposals to get a few more examples of those. I couldn't fit any more of them onto one slide. And so we just have that one example in this presentation. Okay, the next section is your specific activities and timeline. So there are many ways that you can format this, several ways. There's not just one right way to do this. you including the required content, the content that your reviewers tend to want to see, is more important than how you present it in this section. We will go through some examples though in just a second in case that's helpful. But the goal here is to provide both the larger context for the work that you're doing. We don't anticipate that your research is going to start and finish within this 120 hours that we're funding. In fact, it can't, right? You have to be involved in it enough by the time you're writing this proposal to know how to write it. And so you've already started your research in some ways. Or maybe you've been involved with it for a very long time. So we want some of the larger context, some of the stuff that you already know how to do, you know, maybe some of the before and after this period of funding that you're applying for, information about the rest of the project. Maybe you're involved in a project that's, you know, 5 years long and you're doing one chunk of it. Right now you're asking for funding for this 120 hours, but it's got all of these different pieces that it attaches to. And we also want concrete achievable timeline for that 120 hours. That's for a few reasons. One, to help make sure that you have a manageable, achievable timeline for you while acknowledging that you're also a student. You have other things to do. And so you can't be working on this 60 hours a week. That would not work. And so we want to make sure that you have a clearly defined role, you know what you're doing, and it's not going to distract you from the rest of the stuff you have to do. And then also some evidence that this work will be being done with your mentor, either under their direct supervision or with regular check-ins, whatever works for the project you're doing. So things to notice about the sample proposals. Obviously, hopefully what the steps are will differ because you're all doing very different things. Your actual timeline will differ, and how it's presented can also differ. So there's not, I can't say this enough times, there is no formula for your timeline. You just want to make sure that you have all the content in there. Here is one example. So you could do it where you have an upfront brief description of stuff you've done in the past, stuff you already know how to do, and kind of a very brief recounting to, you know, the point at which your 120 hours starts, and then a breakdown by weeks. So this has weeks 1 through 5. We've got a description of what's going on and an estimated concrete time reference. And then the total time at the bottom. Even if you think your total time is obvious, saying the total estimated time is 10 hours a week or 120 hours total in the semester is helpful. Your reviewers may be reading many of these, and just making it very easy for them to see how these time reference work out in your favor can just make it easier for them to be like, great, this is totally manageable. It's a good timeline. Check, 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 fund. Another way that you could do it is like this one, week by week. So instead of chunks of weeks and these kind of larger concrete time chunks, it could just be week by week. So we've got, you know, January 6th through 10th, we're preparing for flow cytometry experiments by doing some stuff. I would say this still needs some more concrete time reference. You could say, I anticipate this taking 10 hours, or the flow cytometry experiments take approximately 2 to 6 hours a piece, and this is how I'll distribute that time. What I've highlighted in the red text here, April 6th through 10th, this time is allotted to performing experiments determined by, you know, my mentor and myself to be relevant to the project. It's contingent on the past results from January 6th to April 6th. And so they've written some wiggle room into their timeline, which is totally reasonable. Many of you might benefit from doing something like this because research isn't totally linear. It doesn't go exactly according to plan. And you might need to work in some time to go back and redo things, or we just simply don't know which direction it will go up to this point, right? Like we've got a really nice solid concrete timeline, and then we need to wait for those results before we can move forward. Totally fine. Write it into your timeline. Reviewers like to see that you have anticipated these contingencies rather than try to talk your way out of them, because they are very standard for research plans. And so you can't talk your way out of them. It just makes your timeline look weird. And so instead, just write it in there if you have them as part of your work. Okay, here's another example. So we've got an upfront paragraph form where we're learning about what's going on, what the tasks entail, And then at the end, we get a timeline that's very boom, 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 right? This chunk is going to take 70 hours. These other ones are 10 hours, and then here's my total. And so really from all of these, you can see, hopefully, the formatting, it varies. And it's, it could be by field standard expectations, your mentor's preference, your personal stylistic preference. The format matters less than having an explanation of what it is that you're doing, how long it's going to take, and when you are doing it. As long as you have those concrete things, you've kind of checked off all of those boxes, and the formatting is less important. Okay, your fourth section, relationship of the work to your mentor's expertise. So this is typically a shorter section. So if we're thinking of each section by kind of its typical length, the statement of problem is about a paragraph. The lit review is the longest section. It could be 1.5, 2 pages if you're doing the double spaced thing. Your timeline, it kind of varies depending on how much explanation your tasks require, but it could be a paragraph to a full page. The relationship of the work to your mentor's expertise and to your education, those can usually be done in pretty quick paragraphs. So they're going to be shorter sections, but you're still cramming a whole bunch of information into this mentor's paragraph. So we've got at least 3 purposes here. The first being that you want to show that you're using your faculty's specific expertise. So they know something super well, very smart, very accomplished. That's, they're a faculty member at a research institution. This is their jam. But they don't know, for instance, all of sociology really well. They know a subset of it, and they work in the specific area. And they've got these research keywords and topics that they kind of regularly publish on. That's the thing that the reviewers want to see, that you know what that is, and that's what they're guiding you on. So they're not just guiding you on something, that they sort of broadly construed work in, but like you're getting the benefit of their specific expertise. And then you gleaning what you can from that specialized knowledge. So there's a reason that you're working with them. What is that? What's some evidence that they've done that kind of work? The reviewers are also looking, again, that you can convey that expertise. And so what kind of counts as evidence of that. And so, that might be the degrees they hold, or some really fun grant funding that they just recently got. It could be that their last 10 publications are working on exactly this area. Lots of different kinds of information. It's a short section, so you're going to just like pick and choose a couple of those nuggets, because there's too much information about why your mentor is amazing to put it all in one paragraph. So you're just going to pick some, heavy hitting evidence that this is what they do, and you're getting access to that. And the third final purpose of this section is some evidence that they'll actually be mentoring you. So you could include something like, my mentor has mentored, making things up, 24 undergraduate students through UROP before. We have a solidly worked out mentoring plan. We check in once a week. I do this under their direct supervision. I report to the lab meetings. We have many exhibits in the art studio that we're working in, like whatever agreements the two of you have made for how you're getting access and guidance. That's what you want to give us some information about. This part of the evaluation also takes into account the mentor's portion of your application. And so you do want to have a good conversation with them so that you have an idea of what they're putting in there and what you can put in there so it matches up. We have seen in the past where a student says, this is how I'm being mentored, and a mentor says, this is how I'm mentoring, and they don't align. And what that looks like is that the student and the mentor relationship isn't really super strong. And that could impact the score and the possibility of funding. Okay, some examples. Again, pause me, read, pick me back up. Oh, okay, so what we see here is my mentor has conducted research in the specific areas that this work is in, right? We've listed just some terms, but it helps narrow the broader field down. Some of the most recent work has been impactful in this particular area. Past 5 years working on, see, we're narrowing it down. So we're getting a really good account of the faculty members' broad area of expertise, narrowing it down to specifically what we're doing in this TiO2 breath sensor for tuberculosis, right? If you skip the next sentence, we go to incredibly successful as a mentor, previously, ranked really highly in the area for mentorship. And then we switch to, and this is what our plan is. We meet bi-weekly, weekly meetings with supervising grad student, and training on all of the most important parts of my project. So it's pretty short. It goes by really quick, and you cram a bunch of content in there. But it can be done pretty seamlessly. Okay, another example. My mentor holds a joint appointment in gender studies and sociology, affiliated with another department on our campus, studies this specific topic. Recent work focuses on, again, more narrow specific topic. And then if we go, I love this. The very last sentence talks about the mentor planning to have a concrete, durable takeaway from the project. So they plan to include the product of the proposal, a website about what we know about this topic so that other people can continue to refer back to it. Not only is it out there in the public, like a journal article would be, but it's more publicly accessible, which is really great. So there's more impact, there's more potential impact of the work that the student's doing with this mentor. Okay, this is the last section. Relationship to your goals. One thing that's very important about this section for you to know is that whatever your goals are fine. They're perfect. Those are your goals. Those are the things that you want to talk about. There's not a right goal. What is more important is that you say what that goal is, or that you don't know the goal and that the project helps you refine that, and how this experience facilitates whatever you're wanting to do. So the purpose is to show that your project facilitates your educational or career goals, that you've thought about how it fits into your larger personal plan, and that you understand the relationship between the things that you'll be getting out of this experience and how they work in your favor for those goals. So things to notice about the sample proposals, they all look different. They absolutely should. You're all different people and you want different things out of life, and that is perfect. And they're also just all legitimate reasons that a UROP experience would be important to you. And so you don't have to feel like you're, pandering to the academic machine. If you don't want to go to grad school, that's fine. You just tell us what the goal is and, again, how it relates to the work you're doing. So another long, wordy example, pause me, pick me back up when you're done reading. What I like about this example is that they give some really specific skills and experiences that the student's getting by working on their UROP project specifically. So if we start, I'm working towards a bachelor's degree. I either want to do medicine or grad. I don't know, but in either case, I need to get some experiences, and this project is going to do that for me by allowing me to formally present my findings. I'm getting access to training in wet lab techniques. We've got specific examples of those, and the skills that I'm gaining through this training apply to a range of things, right? It could be a medical school degree, it could be a graduate school degree. Either way, directly applicable to my coursework. And as you move forward with whatever degrees you're going to get, right? So this is a great example of specific concrete skills and experiences and how they facilitate what you want to get out of it. Another example, robotics is so cool. Okay, I'm in my senior year, I'm getting this kind of degree, emphasis in robotic systems and controls. My long-term objective is to go into industry, right? So this is not an academic goal, great. Ideally, this specific company is where I want to work. To increase my chances, I do have to go to grad school, and research helps prepare me to get into grad school, enhances my programming skills, coding, circuit boards, communication with protocol, right? And so the student is saying, my ultimate goal is a specific kind of thing in industry, and I know all of the kinds of steps that it's going to take me to get me there. And this research experience is, you know, step one, getting experience with programming and circuit boards and communication. Okay, so that is all of the content to talk about section by section. Some reminders about resources for you all as you are working on this. Grant funding proposal writing is hard. It just is. And so if you feel like you're struggling, you're not alone. We've got some options for you for feedback and support. So you can submit a draft for review. The deadline for this is March 3rd, and that is because I have to have time to read them and give you thoughtful comments and give them back to you, with you having enough time to implement those changes and get your mentor's final approval. So submit it. You can submit it through this form, through this link. There is a link at the bottom of the how to apply page, same place that you found this video. And you can submit that draft for pre-review. I will read it. I will point at anything that might strengthen it, anything that reviewers tend to say in your area, so that you can choose how to revise and move forward. The Writing Center is always a good option. They can help you with flow, like is this section achieving the thing that it needs to achieve? And then I mentioned a couple of the videos in the Lit Review section earlier, but we have several videos that would be helpful. We have an event coming up actually on March 1st from 11:15 to 12:15 on writing abstracts. It's a wonderful session. Kenna she's a wonderful presenter and it's really helpful. So if you can attend that in real time, that might be helpful to you for writing this first section and even formatting your Lit Review section. And if not, we'll have a recording posted on the website after the event is over. And then again, we've got pre-recorded videos of lots of things that would be helpful, writing Lit Reviews, some of the discipline-specific writing sections might be helpful. And so go back to that education series page and kind of scroll around and see if any of those resources would be helpful for you. And then you can also contact me at any time. I am always here. So s.shiver@utah.edu. You can call, you can go to our website and find all of these extra resources. However we can support you and make it a little easier for you to write these things, I'm very happy to do. So thank you for watching the video. Godspeed on writing your proposals. I hope that you actually find it a joyous thing to do. And if not, email me and let me help you. Thanks.